Action!
Good morning. I have before you a treasure that I'm reading. This book inspired me so much about reading that I decided to make this video and urge all you ladies out there, don't waste your time with, well, just read good books. And what I mean by good books is not any of the books that you can buy at the grocery store or Walgreens, somewhere or another drugstore, because all they do is stock the best sellers. And I go there and check them out every once in a while, and I would not buy one of them because they're romance novels, some of them are, a few are thrillers, and none of them are realistic, well-written, well-conceived books that are going to do you any good as well as give you pleasure. Now this book is by a well-thought-of author, Robert K. Massie. I've read two of his previous books. One was Peter the Great, and the other one was Nicholas and Alexandra, which I plan to read again. To make sure that, because this is Catherine.
Wait a minute now. You're doing a promo. You're not going to get this on YouTube. You can't do promos like this.
Promos. I'm not trying to. All I'm doing is talking about good books.
Everybody's seen that now. Let's talk about something else.
No. Oh, this guy doesn't read. Don't pay attention to him. He's become illiterate because he can't concentrate. A book like this would just kill him. He couldn't read more than 2 pages and it would have to stop. All he can do now is watch TV. It's beyond him to read books. But I want to talk about this book because of this great woman in this book. Queen Catherine, Catherine the Great. And I could not believe this woman. She was picked out by Queen Elizabeth of Russia to, yes, they had a Queen Elizabeth too, the Empress, an Empress Elizabeth, and she picked her out. She was one of the royalties that was eligible to marry her nephew Peter, the second Peter the Great. It was scheduled to be, and she was German, of German blood. But at 16, she was wed to the prince who was going to be, Elizabeth had designated as her heir. She could pick it out. At that time, the reigning monarch could pick out who was going to come to the throne after her death. So, Catherine
what is the point here?
Picked out, and well,
what's the point?
Well, the point is that this had to wait a long time, and she and the king, or Peter the Great,
what is the point?
Were going to have to spend the most miserable years.
The
Catherine
point is
said,
that I can see is that you were born a king, but you never got any further. Right?
Hey, this can it? Just listen. If you can't say anything.
Well, you were born a king. That was your last name.
Don't interrupt this. These people want to know
Who wants to know?
There's women want to know about a great woman in history. This woman managed to get to the throne, and in so doing, she brought all her interests, the fact that she could speak several languages, that she was a big reader in a country where, many people were very backward. And she had ideas, and she tried to, for example, this was the years of the serfs, when a lot of the people were owned. In fact, some of the great noblemen of Russia would have as high as 200,000 serfs belonging to their estate. So all these serfs did everything that a little town would do, and but they were owned. And Catherine didn't think that was right, so she tried to approach the idea of freeing the serfs, not owning people. Well, they'd say, this is a cold country. If we don't own the serfs and force them to work, they will not work. They'll just leave. They're nomads. And if things get tough, they'll just leave.
Well, of course they would. Would you want to be a slave?
Well, anyway, I said the only way that our country can progress is with serfs. Well, of course, they came up with all the reasons why people have justified slavery down through history. But here she was living in a country where millions were serfs owned. And so, you know, it was unbelievable, some of the things that she tried to do. For example, she read Voltaire, she read all of the Enlightenment, they called them writers, and then she tried to implement some of these ideas. In fact, she spent 2 years writing all her ideas down on how a country could be run better, with more freedom for everyone, more representation. You know, she...
Well,
and
is this
Russian
History 101 or what is it?
But I just want to emphasize to you, you can find this book in any library. I've lived all over in the Southwest in several states, and I never ever lived anywhere where I couldn't find a library close by. And libraries will always, you can always find the latest books. They'll always have a section with new books that they're constantly getting. And this is where you're apt to get, if you're poor and you can't afford to keep buying books, you will find them
well,
at a library.
If you're poor, you can't
and
keep
all
affording books.
during my life, I took my
books.
kids to the library too, and so they naturally wanted books if I got books. So that we'd come home with what, 10, 15, 30, 20, 30 books. And then we would read them and we'd take them back and get some more. And so this way you can do an awful lot about keeping yourself informed about what's going on in the world.
Support your public library.
And oh, listen to him. He's such a cynic, a total cynic. And don't listen to cynics; they are not worth listening to. He's one that's not worth listening to, I guarantee. And that's what you do when you get a book that's not worth reading. And nowadays, when time is scarce and people don't have time to read.
How do you know they don't have time to read?
One thing, a lot of people who are working, they don't have time to read. I know, when I'm raising kids, you have to make room for reading. And you have to make, so why waste it? Why waste your time reading a book that isn't even worth reading? And this means, if you don't know, a romance novel written by the romance, there's a number of them that just make millions. Danielle Steele is one of them. One called Mary Roberts is another. If you read those stories, you're not going to get any new information. You're not going to be introduced to the complexity of life because it won't be there. And difficult problems will be left out because they might not be popular, and it might lessen this best-selling author's success. So just be advised that if you read these generic novels, you know, romance novels, thrillers, a thriller is a comic book hero. He does stuff that's no human being could ever do. And he's not realistic, and he is violent. And you're buying into this. You're making that writer famous, and you're promoting this kind of philosophy. Don't read what you can't justify.
Can I make a comment?
You're wasting valuable time and your kids' time
Can I make a
by doing this. I remember my mother was addicted to romance novels.
Oh, jeez, here we
go. And so she just quit reading the good ones altogether. They just got too hard. If she wanted a quick fix, she'd just get her own. Well, they were more sexual than they were romance. She would get her one of those.
Yeah, but that wasn't the only thing she would get.
And then she got so she wouldn't even touch a book like this. She
would go
claimed
back
she
to
didn't
real
have
guys,
time anymore.
She would get the real
But
guys.
she was addicted to that certain kind of novel. Well, it was sort of on the Gone with the Wind type of novel, where they had a romantic hero who wasn't worth a damn, but he was fascinating. I can remember so well the kind of heroes that she liked in her novel. Rakish, you know, a pirate maybe. That's just all nonsense.
Pirate.
And as a result, I could not talk to my mother
There aren't many pirates
about
in Southern
problems.
Utah. Let's face it.
Problems.
Cowboys, no pirates.
It's like if you don't develop a taste to try to solve problems, you won't be able to read a book like this. Because this woman, this Catherine the Great, was trying to solve all the problems of Russia.
Yeah, right.
And you read those and you think, wow, this was one great woman.
Right.
That I could respect what she tried to do.
How did it work out?
Me, I'm working on my memoirs now. And what I do with my memoirs, try to write the truth. That's what, committed to the truth. Don't whitewash anything. Don't prettify. Don't distort history. Just write it with all its warts, all its upsets. Don't hide it. And boy, that's been hard to live up to. Very hard to live up to, because there's a lot of people are trying to high press you. Oh, don't write about just write about the good things. Well, that's distortion. You're probably going to overlook.
No, it's not distortion.
Oh, yes,
it's writing about the good things.
And not the bad.
Right,
but
it's not distortion.
If you don't write about the bad, you can't solve the problems. If you don't get them squarely in front of you, get it into your book, get it out there and say, this is the problem I dealt with as a child. And what are we going to do? Alcoholism, molestation. What are we going to do?
What about drugs?
To stop.
What about snorkeling
parents,
glue?
Stop people from addiction, raising kids, doing a horrible job, messing the kids up. Me, I was disabled by all of the stress that I experienced with alcoholism in the family.
There you go.
My dad. So that's what I'm writing about. I'm writing about what caused that. So how can we get more health going? And this woman did the same thing when she became the Empress of Russia. And that's why they call her Catherine the Great, because she tackled all the problems.
What do they call Peter the Great?
This is a book I think I'm going to give for Christmas to my two sisters. They'll pass it back and forth. It's going to be expensive, but it's well worth it. I'll get it on Amazon. Amazon's a great place to get these kind of books if you can.
Plug all of these things.
You won't get them in Walgreens. You won't get them in your grocery store. But if you look, you can find them. And I tell every woman, don't waste your time on bad books. Get some good ones. And then, who knows? Maybe one of these days you'll read my memoir.
Ah, there's a plug for that, right? We sooner or later
see, publishers want more sure things now, so they don't want anything but romance novels, thrillers,
How do you know
somewhat like that. Yeah, because of what's printed, what sells the most. And it's, you know, publishers are just like anybody else. They can make a fast buck. Then they're going to publish books that they know very well aren't good for people to read.
Well,
that doesn't matter if they sell.
Well, that's the whole idea.
Well, it's just like selling anything that's bad for people. Tobacco, alcohol, you know. If it sells, we can make a lot of money on it. There's some people that'll do it.
Everybody.